Hey everybody, this is Athletes and Antiquities, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about some ideas of how to assess risk when looking at really volatile items, such as Pokemon cards, sports cards, etc. So when talking about, risk with these like very, volatile and abstract items such as like Pokemon cards or, other TCGs, sports cards, comic books, action figures, antiques, art, whatever it may be, things that don't produce anything, things that don't have a set store of value, it's pretty hard to figure out like how risky is this purchase. But I think we can all agree that whatever that number is, if you can even assign a number to it, it's high. Like compared to your alternative of another store of value or another thing where you can park your money, this is one of the riskiest things you can do. And I think a problem that people run into is they look at the past, they look at past performance and kind of apply that to the future. They say, oh, like any card you bought in 2012, you've outpaced the stock market, blah, blah, blah. Whatever card you bought, PSA 9, whatever, raw, binder copy, whatever it may be, you've done well. And yes, that is true, but there was so much that had to happen. I think it's skewing people's perspective of risk. And I have all these gambler cards from Fossil here because that's really what we're doing. We're gambling with emotion, which to explain that a bit, the value of any item you see here, any item, whether it's the Absol, Zekrom, Reshiram, Milotic, whatever it may be, its value is in the emotion that you and I and everyone else that's a fan has to that item. If you showed this Zekrom card to Joe Schmo, who's never heard of Pokemon, he wouldn't give you $1 for that card. The whole value of it is in emotion. And that in itself is insanely risky. Pokemon has a lot of legs. There are multiple generations that collect it. There are adults that are in their 30s that were a kid when it first came out. There are people my age who were, in the mid areas, and there are kids who are just getting in now. This has legs. I'm not here to be a doom and gloom. I'm not here to say that it's all going to zero, whatever, but you do have to understand that you're investing in emotion, and as long as people are emotional towards that item can maintain value. But if that starts to slip, then so does the value assigned to it. And if you're so of these 4 cards up here, these are collection items for me. These are not investments. These are just cards that I love because I think they're sick. So I bought them. They were cheap. Some of them I graded myself, and then they're just sticking in my collection. So these cards up here aren't an example of what I would be doing in speculating, because I do speculate, but not to the magnitude that some others do. But when we're talking about this, I feel like people underestimate the difficulty of selling an item. Like when they see, oh, this card that I have, I bought it for 100, now it's 200. I just made $100. They act like they're $100 richer because of that. But they haven't sold that card yet. It's all just numbers on a piece of paper, numbers on a computer screen. If you have that collector app, you just see the line go up, your graph looks good, and that makes you happy, which is fine, but you haven't sold that item, and these items are difficult to sell. Compared to any other store of wealth, these are by far the most illiquid items I can think of. I hate to bring up stocks in this because I don't want to compare Pokemon to stocks. I don't think they're comparable in any degree. Stocks, they produce income. They have a set store of value. That's an investment. This is speculating for fun. But when looking at a stock or something, you can sell $100,000, $1 million, $10 million of stocks in 5 seconds. Boom, gone. They're done. The money is in your brokerage account. It goes for you had $1 million of stocks, bam, sell, Now you have $1 million in your portfolio, and then you can move that over into your bank account. Done, easy. Next day, it's in there. Like that is like the benchmark. But the risk of a Pokemon card, if you have $1 million in Pokemon cards, like even if it's like trophies and stuff, that to get like close to the market value takes time. There aren't just thousands of buyers clamoring to pay that exact price you want at any second. You gotta wait for the right guy to come around, wait for the right auction, wait for the right mix of events for that item to really sell. So, there is a lot of risk in that sense. Like your money is tied up. It's much harder to move. And another thing is like this whole to make a profit. This sounds dumb. Like you're like, yeah, obviously, to make a profit, someone has to buy it for a higher price, right? But I think people overestimate like the amount of money that it takes, or the amount of money the average person can spend. Like if you buy a card for $500, let's say, this is all hypothetical, let's say you buy a card for $500, there's 1,000 buyers that can pay $500 and want to pay $500 for the item. Cool, like great. But let's say you want to wait until it doubles in price, whatever. If your buyer pool, what did I say, $1,000? If your buyer pool is 1,000 people at $1,000, how big is your buyer pool at 2,000? If you really want to wait at 5,000, if you expect it to go there, like your buyer pool shrinks astronomically. And I think people kind of underestimate that. Like, oh, this booster box, this Skyridge booster box, this EX Dragon booster box, this first edition Neo Genesis booster box, whatever it may be, oh, it's selling for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever that price is, it doesn't matter. They're like, oh, like it's expensive. Oh, but like it's gonna keep going up because it's like the rarest box ever. Like everybody wants it. Like sure, it may go up in the foreseeable future because of how massive Pokemon is. Like I don't want to underplay that. There are adults, there are kids, there are people my age. Like I was saying, this is a strong hobby with very strong foundations, and I think it's here to stay for years because of, you can just tell by like the constant influx of kids. Those kids, some of them are gonna stick around. Like it's inevitable, like we have. But I lost my train of thought there a bit. Sorry, but like. It does have legs, but you really have to think of like how many people are really gonna pay that price. Like sure, if you're looking at numbers on a piece of paper, oh, this is all made up. Let's say there's 100 of, I'll say 1,000 again. I'll keep my 1,000 example. There's 1,000 Skyridge booster boxes. They're like, oh, but like there's millions of Pokemon fans. Like it's selling for $30,000 now, but like that makes sense, because it's so rare. So I'm gonna buy it. I think it's gonna go up in value, and it may. Like I was saying, but $30,000, that's life-changing money for the vast majority of people. That's a brand new car. That's a down payment on a house. Like how many people can pay more for that? It's like that greater fool theory. We're all kind of abiding by that greater fool theory in some capacity. Like, oh, I bought this card because I think it's super cheap. I think there will be a greater fool down the line to buy it from me for higher. And sometimes I'm the greater fool. Sometimes I'm paying more than the person that sells it to me, and that's fine. But like as you get higher in value, that gets much harder to do with something like this that doesn't have value. It doesn't get harder to do if you just have more shares of Apple or whatever, because like that's tied to something. And if Apple as a company is performing well, that stock will be stable and will increase. Like that's just how a stock works. But with Pokemon, that's not the case. Like Pokemon can boom, but if there aren't people shelling out $30,000, that box it could stagnate. So the whole kind of idea behind this video is, if you have a $5 card, it's much easier for that $5 card to go to 15 or 20 bucks than it is for a $5,000 item to go for 10 or 20. And it might, because like we've seen that with the trophy cards and stuff. Like they've taken off. People are paying six figures regularly for those trophies, those snaps and stuff. Like there was a few snaps that just popped up. Like it's happening, but it's like, I think the risk, like going back to our risk, I think the risk of those higher end cards is exorbitantly high. Like if there's 10,000 people that want to buy that card for $5, there could be 8,000 that could pay 10 or 15. Like the numbers are dropping off much slower at these much lower dollar amounts. Like these $5, $10 cards, I think it's much easier for those to move in the positive direction because more people can pay for that higher price. But like, if a trophy card goes from 1,000 to 2,000, like, yeah, like people at my age, like, we could still afford that. It's expensive. You have to budget for it. You have to work towards that, but you could buy that. But when I'm seeing like an Illustrator go from like 200,000 to 300,000, I'm like, that's meaningless to me. Like, I'm so far out of that market that, and like, so like the vast majority of people are so far out of that market. Very few people are making those prices go up. And when very few people are making those prices go up, I think there's a lot more risk there. And if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your opinion. Like, if you think like I'm way off base on this, and I'm not trying to like scare anybody. It's more just like kind of my thoughts on seeing these high prices. Like, there was a Lily card. It was a trophy card in Japan. It just sold for over $100,000. I don't know if that sale is confirmed, but it was being bid higher than that. I'll try and put the listing on screen if I remember. But like, stuff like that is just crazy to me. Like people paying that amount of money for these non-productive assets. And they're buying it for collections. They're buying it because they love it. But how many people love that card at $100,000? I bet they could all fit in a room together. So if just a few of those people start to lose interest, like, you can see vast changes in those high-end markets. And I'm sure not many people watching this video are just regularly dealing at that level, so it might not apply to you, but it's still something interesting to think about, like when you're buying an item, being like, oh, this card went from $10 to $100, like everyone loves this pre-release Milotic, like, oh, it went up in value, like their pre-release card's super low pop, it went up in value, I think it's a safe bet, but like, is it really? Like, is it a safe bet? Like, I think if you're buying it for a collection, like I said, just buy it. Like these are all collection items for me. But if you're only buying that item to make money, I think you really got to think about how risky that is, because I think we get a little desensitized to it. We get a little desensitized to like how crazy it is to buy shiny cardboard for $5,000. Like, you see people doing it all the time, and it's like, dude, this is more just a ramble. I don't really have a concise point at the end of this. But I kind of wanted to open it up to conversation, I just want to hear what you guys think about, like, how you view risk with these collection items. Do you see it in the same sense that I do? Like, do you think I'm crazy? Am I just talking on my soapbox, and everyone's tuning me out? Like, that may be the case, but I think we really got to start really considering risk, because, everyone says like, oh, I'm a collector. If my collection goes to zero, I don't care because I'm a collector. And it's like, I mean, I'm a collector too, but if my collection goes to zero, like, overnight, it's gonna hurt. Like, I don't think I'm gonna sell these cards anytime soon, but if I know that, oh, I paid $80 for that and now it's worth 10, like, that's tough. That's a tough pill to stomach. So like, everyone talks like money is of no object, but it really is, and it really is important regardless. If you're buying and selling, if you're making money in this hobby, it matters. But even if you're just collecting, it matters too. And once again, my light is turned off. That seems to be a running theme. I'm not doing that. It's doing that on its own. So I think it's time to wrap this video up. But yeah, let me know what you think. Am I way off base? Am I right on the money? Just let me, like, how do you view risk, and how does it guide your buying and selling? Love to hear what you think about that. Thanks. Bye.